Om Shri Ganeshaya Namo Namah. Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe. It's a green morning, it's a green afternoon, it's a green evening, wherever you are. Whatever time zone you are in, whatever place you are in, please take care of your health, take care of your wellness. आप हैं तो जहान है, आप हैं तो दुनिया है, आप हैं तो दुनिया खूबसूरत है, और यदि आप स्वस्थ हैं तो दुनिया स्वस्थ है. That is the way we have to look at the philosophy and the ethos of the life. I'm privileged, and it's a personal privilege whenever I meet Professor M.M. Pant sir. It's a great learning from him. It's a great intellectual capital which comes to me whenever I interact with him. There's so much of knowledge, wisdom, information, experience, everything pours into my soul, and I enjoy every moment being spent with him. He's a great visionary. He's a great education leader. He is a experienced soul on this planet who has given his entire life, dedicated his life to education sector, and particularly when we talk about technology, when we talk about mobile phone. The other day, he gave such a valuable inputs to me. And during this pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, when the pandemic was declared, I still recall he was very kind. I requested him that time, he had come with us. And today, when we have just moved out of, I hope we all have moved out of this pandemic, because there's something else going on the other shore, where they are trying to prove muscles coming from the armed forces. When I look toward that, I get quite worried. World should be peaceful. We all should respect each other the best possible way. Today, let's have interaction with Professor M.M. Pant sir, the founder, LMP Education Trust, and the former Pro-Vice Chancellor, IGNOU. Now, we would also learn today about IGNOU from him a little bit. And subject is very interesting today, why teaching is a critical skill in 21st century. With his kind permission, I'll flip through some slides, and then we start our, intellectual wisdom with him. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our chamber since 1994, when I moved out of the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and you can well imagine, during the pandemic, we always realized that we got to take the entire world as if Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And when I go back to my tourism days, Ministry of Tourism days, a lot of people used to come from abroad. I'm talking about mid-80s, and they used to say, यार भारत में कोई ऐसी जगह होनी चाहिए कि हम लोग जब यहाँ पर आएं और लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्शन करना चाहें और कुछ करना चाहें, because at a particular age, whatever you have done over the years, you want to repay back to your society, your civilization, your community, your people, your country, और अपने माता पिता के नाम पे, पूर्वजों के नाम पे आप कुछ करना चाहते हैं अच्छा. तो I always used to think, why there is not a platform. ये प्रवासी भारतीय दिवस तो 2003 में आया, पर उससे पहले पंजाबी प्रवासी दिवस 1994 में शुरू हो गया था. उसकी भी किसी दिन बातचीत करेंगे, आज टाइम नहीं है उसके लिए. लेकिन during this pandemic, when the challenges were there, when we noticed doctors, nurses, paramedical people, they are trying to reach out everybody, trying to save every soul. And our chamber decided internally with the governing body, when I discussed it, said, what do you want? I said, sir, if we can support education ecosystem, what's our best way we can? Let us learn, relearn, let us help out, reach out wherever we can. So teachers and youth, they were at the helm of the affairs, at the heart, when we learned 1.65 billion children are away from schools, colleges, and universities. I do not want to get into too much of details, because I want to learn and relearn and uplearn, upskill, skill, and whatever we can pick up the best in today's time with Professor Pant sir. That is something. Napoleon Hill, long time back, there was a beautiful book. You all should read the audio version. You all should listen to the audio version. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. We have come a long way. During this entire pandemic, right from 25th March 2020 till date, we have not taken a break even for a single day. We have done 1,483 webinars. And every morning, afternoon, evening, we are with you because our Indian diaspora in different time zones, we have come to all of them. So come to the YouTube channel. You can see the previous videos also. Lot of wonderful experiences which people have shared. So join me in extending a very warm welcome today, Professor M.M. Pansar. He is a computational physics with a professional degree in law. After long innings of the 50 years plus, as an academic researcher, a lawyer, and an educational entrepreneur, he's now exploring new pedagogy, technology, and curricula for the future with focus on the period heralding the fourth industrial age. His special focus is on mobile WhatsApp-based lifelong learning. All my brothers and sisters, those are in Northeast part of India, and they always tell us, we don't have bandwidth, we have got lots of problems, we don't get signal over here and all. I do remember in between, in the thick of the pandemic, I did discuss with him. He came forward. He was very kind. He gave the vision. Even of the, the signal, there are a lot of things which can be done. So we'll try and pick up some threads today. And he always believes that, special focus. And particularly when I was interacting with him some time back, he was telling me this mobile phone, when we talk about women's safety, when we talk about a couple of other things, do you know, Dr. Gulshan Sharma, the power is right in this mobile. It is, we are not making optimum use of it in the right direction. So I would request him today, he will also tell us how the mobile WhatsApp-based lifelong learning, transcending traditional education and blending personalized and the social learning, how they all are together. He has been a faculty at the MNIT Allahabad, University of Western Ontario, Canada, and IIT Kanpur. He carries a long, rich experience of his life, which we would like to learn and pick up the best possible way in short, crisp, and sweet time. He was Director Computing at IGNOU, and he was also the Pro-Vice Chancellor. Some of his current educational initiatives are introducing quantum principles at school, preparing teachers and learners. Now, this is very important. Preparing teachers and learners for the age of the artificial intelligence. And learning 3-1, that is education in the third decade of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in extending a very warm welcome this morning, this afternoon, this evening, Professor M.M. Pansar. It's always a pleasure, sir. It's always a treat. And it's something very enriching whenever we can get your valuable time and your experience, your expertise, and your vision to be shared with the entire universe. Today, we are talking about the critical skills, 21st century skills. And एक ही चीज समझ आती है, sir. I don't know. I feel it that way, that हम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की बजाय अगर ह्यूमन कैपिटल पर जोर दें और इंडिया से अपनी ह्यूमन कैपिटल को अच्छे से टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ ग्रूम करें, ट्रेन करें, और वर्ल्ड ओवर पॉपुलेशन इज एजिंग इन मेनी कंट्रीज एंड दे विल हैव अ शॉर्टफॉल ऑफ द यंगर जनरेशन एज वेल. We would like to have your vision, your wisdom, your intellectual capital being shared with the entire universe. Whatever you would like to give us your wisdom this morning, this afternoon, this evening. Hearty welcome to Professor M.M. Pansar.
So thank you, Dr. Sharma, and it's a pleasure always to interact with you and to sort of, see the great thing that you're doing, because I'm more of a thinker, you are a doer, and you really want to make it happen. So it's a pleasure to share my thoughts with you. And as you see, we have created a very provocative title because nobody so far has referred to teaching as an important skill for 21st century. If you ask anybody about 21st century skill, they will say coding. They will say this thing, programming, etc. But you mentioned several times, and I will kind of build on that. You talked about intellectual capital and you talked about India leading the world. And I want to begin with that. There is a very famous book by Eric Hanushek several years ago, where he talked about the intellectual capital of nations. Just like Adam Smith is very famous for the wealth of nations, he was talking about the intellectual capital. In fact, he said the knowledge capital of nations. And what he said was that whether it is individuals, regions, areas, or countries, those which will be higher in their knowledge capital, they will be more prosperous. You see this around you. You know, people in a certain field are more prosperous. Silicon Valley is more prosperous. In India, certain regions are more prosperous. The future is about a knowledge-driven society. And I will go further. It is also into innovation and creativity-driven society. It's an information-driven society. And that's why I emphasize that 21st century teaching will become a very important thing. And that is the scope of this session today. This is not like a lecture. Dr. Sharma has begun very well. This series of conversations. And I'm sure as he gets comments, questions, he will raise some of them. And we are in it together. It is not somebody telling you this is what should be done, but it is to point out to you what are the challenges and opportunities and what could we be doing. So I want to begin with a number of stories and anecdotes and so on. And but first I will try to put the principles in a nutshell. So there is a fundamental shift in education, its purpose and goal. See, the goal of education when we were studying was to educate us to fit the world. So you were trained to be engineers, doctors, lawyers, soldiers, architects, whatever. There's a world. You are young. You have to adjust to the world. We are training you for that. Today, the purpose of education is not that. Today, the purpose of education is that you will change the world. We have probably made a mess of the world. And you have to now find solutions to the mess that your seniors have created. It is not that you have to follow in their footsteps. You know climate change, you know various issues, etc., and economic disasters, those disasters. So the purpose of education is completely changed. The purpose of education was for you to fit and adjust to the world. Today it is to be a misfit and challenge what's going on and say, we will find solutions. And what our education will do is help us building a better world, whatever qualities you want, a richer world, peaceful world, better world, cleaner world, where people live long, healthy, fulfilling lives. We've created a world where people are stressed to the end. You see so many things that you hear about stress and stress busters and young people committing suicide and older people having no idea why they are living and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting situation, a very fundamental change. And that is why I want to draw attention to that you will dream and help fulfill the dream, because now the technologies that Dr. Sharma has been talking about enable you to do anything. Earlier it wasn't so. And in fact, as you know, for most of the past, nature was stronger than us and we had to adjust to it. So we had to make living where we can be there. So today, we know enough and we will know more about to go and do whatever we want. Now, there was a time when we thought our Earth is the center of the universe and that is all that is there in the universe. In fact, whether it's the Western world or our world, we had this geocentric thing that Earth is the center of the universe and everything else is around us. Even today, few days ago, you must have Surya Makar Sankrant, Makar Rashi mein chala gaya, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. Surya kahin nahi gaya, Surya wahin raha, hum gaye. Earth is moving. So the point is that now we are understanding that जिस तरीके से हम कहते थे कि Earth is all that we have, we say नहीं, Moon भी है, Mars भी है, Jupiter भी है, और कई लोगों ने बड़े सीरियसली कहा है कि अगर यहाँ बड़ी दिक्कत होगी तो मून चले जाएंगे. जैसे इंडिया में जब दिक्कत होती है तो यूएस का वीसा ले लेते हैं, इमिग्रेशन ले लेते हैं, तो मून में चले जाएंगे, मार्स में चले जाएंगे. वो दिस इज व्हाट यू कैन डू. और ये हो सकता है कि आप कहो कि नहीं, हम जुपिटर से डायमंड्स लेके यहाँ ले आएंगे और डायमंड माइनिंग कर लेंगे, कुछ भी. मतलब तो द होल यूनिवर्स नाउ is becoming part of your scope of operation. Earlier, it was only your village. At the most, you could go to the village boundary or to the big town near your village. And this is the big difference. And this is why I said that teaching has become a very important skill. So let me try to put this in somewhat formal sense. So 3 big changes have happened in education. One, education was originally for the few. Only few people needed to know. That was the idea, that knowledge is there, it is limited knowledge. Few people need to know, they will spread it to others. 2, now we are saying everybody must know. Everybody, not only the country, but in the whole world. The second thing we said, there is a finite time for studying. So you went to the Gurukul or the school or the college or the university or the military academy or something, and you studied for a few years. The rest of your life, you lived off what you had learned during those years. We are now moving towards lifelong learning. So this is the 3 big differences: education for all, education for life, and education for a large number of years. Therefore, the challenges to education in volume have become very large. And the other fundamental thing has happened is that we are now moving away from learning different subjects like physics, chemistry, math, zoology, botany, etc., to learning how to learn. This is said in the new education policy very early. One of the big changes with the new education policy is saying from rote learning of settled subjects, we want to move to learning how to learn. And this is why this is a fundamental transitioning point. And this is why I said teaching is going to become the most critical skill, because your manifest has changed. You're no longer talking about very limited kind of thing. I'll give you an example. So much of our education tradition comes from religious education. The model of religious education is that there is one God, he created everything, he knows everything about how, and he is telling this information to some of his chosen people. Sometimes books were written about it. So you had the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament. For us, we had 4 Vedas and 18 Puran and so on. जिसको 4 वेद आते थे उसको चतुर्वेदी कहते थे, जिसको 3 आते थे उसको त्रिवेदी कहते थे, जिसको 2 आते थे उसको द्विवेदी कहते थे, एक वाले को कुछ नहीं कहते थे, पर खैर कुछ लोग अपने को वेदी भी कहते हैं. तो पॉइंट ये था कि ये उनको आगे, अब आपका काम था औरों को जाके इसके बारे में बताएं. तो हमने अगर पढ़ लिया तुलसीदास के रामायण, तो हम जाके कहीं पे जाके सुंदरकांड की बात करें, ये करें, जामवंत के वचन सुहाए, ये वो हम बताएं. पर सबको ये जानने की जरूरत नहीं थी. ये ट्रिकल डाउन इफेक्ट था. और जो लोग थे, चाहे किसी सोसाइटी में, जो उनके पंडित थे, उनका मेन काम था कि ये रिलीजियस फेस्टिवल कब ऑब्जर्व करें. अभी आप लोग पूछेंगे नवरात्रि कब आ रही है, हम कहेंगे 2 अप्रैल को आ रही है. रामनवमी कब है, हम कहेंगे 10 अप्रैल को है. उसके बाद, पर ये सिर्फ हमारे यहाँ नहीं है. नॉर्थ ईस्ट में बहुत सारे क्रिश्चियंस है. क्रिश्चियंस का यहाँ सवाल होता है ईस्टर कब होता है. अब क्रिसमस डे तो 25 दिसंबर को होता है, हर एक ने सीख लिया बचपन से. पर ईस्टर को कैलकुलेट करना पड़ता है, और आपको सीखना पड़ता है कि ईस्टर कैसे कैलकुलेट होता है. और ईस्टर बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है, बिकॉज अगर आप हमारे यहाँ देखें तो ज्यादातर चीजें तिथि से चलती हैं. चंद्रमा की तिथि से चलती हैं, चंद्रमा की राशि से चलती हैं. कुछ हम पूर्णमासी के दिन करते हैं, तो होली पूर्णमासी के दिन है, रक्षाबंधन पूर्णमासी के दिन है, दिवाली अमावस्या के दिन है, बसंत पंचमी पंचमी के दिन है. हम इन तिथियों से चलते हैं. लेकिन कुछ हम सूर्य की भी चलते हैं. संक्रांति, मकर संक्रांति, ये सूर्य देख के चलता है. ईस्टर जो है ये दोनों को मिलाता है. ईस्टर निकालने का तरीका है कि आप पहले देखें कि वर्नल इक्विनॉक्स कब है, स्प्रिंग इक्विनॉक्स कब है, जो इस साल होगा 20 मार्च को. और स्प्रिंग इक्विनॉक्स के बाद पूर्णमासी कब है, और तो स्प्रिंग इक्विनॉक्स के बाद जो पूर्णमासी है उसका अगला दिन जो है वो ईस्टर संडे होता है. तो अब के इक्विनॉक्स है 20 मार्च को, उसके बाद की पूर्णमासी है 16 अप्रैल को, तो ईस्टर 17 अप्रैल को होगा. तो ये सिखाया जाता था. जो मतलब क्रिश्चियनिटी में वो पादरी होते थे, सेमिनरी में सीखते थे, हमारे यहाँ पंडित होते थे, वहां सीखते थे. पर पॉइंट ये था कि उनको, और वो लोग फिर आम जनता को बताते थे कि भैया तुम ये तैयारी करो, इस दिन गुड फ्राइडे है, इस दिन ईस्टर संडे है, इस दिन ऐश वेडनेसडे है. हम लोग कहते थे कि पूर्णिमा है, छठ है. ये आजकल होलाष्टक शुरू हो गया. अगर आपको इसमें इंटरेस्ट है तो अभी से अगले 8 दिन तक होलाष्टक शुरू हो गया. सो दिस वाज द मॉडल ऑफ एजुकेशन. Most people had very little to do with being educated, because they live their lives in whatever they want. They were born in a certain thing, they grew up in a certain thing, they died in the same environment. Today, every 2 years, the environment is changing. अब मैं आपको दो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज बताता हूँ इन टर्म्स ऑफ लर्निंग. तो हमने ये माना टीचर आके पढ़ाएगा, ठीक है, मान लिया ये चला आ रहा है सैकड़ों साल से, अभी भी सब होता है, आप लोग स्कूल जाते हैं, टीचर होता है, टीचर पढ़ा. पर मैं ये सवाल पूछता हूँ, थोड़ा बहुत छेड़ के पूछता हूँ, हिंदुस्तान को मोबाइल फोन इस्तेमाल करना किसने सिखाया? और मैं छेड़ता इसलिए हूँ कि मैं इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी पढ़ा हूँ, वहाँ के बहुत लोग IAS बनते थे. मैं कहा तुमने देखो मौका छोड़ दिया. एक जना होता डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ मोबाइल फोन ट्रेनिंग, एक होता डिप्टी डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ एंड्रॉइड ट्रेनिंग, एक होता डिप्टी डायरेक्टर जनरल ऑफ iOS ट्रेनिंग. और मैं मजाक में नहीं कह रहा हूँ, लिटरेसी का अभी भी है. मैं अब नहीं जानता हूँ लेटेस्ट क्या है, पर लिटरेसी मिशन का जो डायरेक्टर जनरल होता था वो एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी होता था मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ HRD में, और 70 साल से यहाँ लिटरेसी नहीं हो पाई. लेकिन मोबाइल फोन सब लोगों ने 5 साल में सीख लिया, और अच्छा खासा सीख लिया. मेरी मेड सर्वेंट भी मोबाइल से बात करती है, ये करती है, व्हाट्सएप से मैसेज करती है, वो करती है. तो किसने सिखाया ये मोबाइल? टीचिंग तो हुई ना, किसी ने टीचिंग करी? एवरीबॉडी वाज अ टीचर. जिसको आता था, आप सीखने को तैयार थे, वो सिखा देता था. अभी आप देखिए, पिछले, ये तो मैं कह रहा हूँ 10 साल पुरानी बात, पिछले 2 साल पुरानी, कोविड के बाद, मतलब आप छोड़ दीजिए औरों की बात, हमारे जैसे पढ़े लोगों को ये नहीं पता था ऑक्सीमीटर क्या होता है. ऑक्सीमीटर उसी को लगता था जो कोई भर्ती हो गया अस्पताल में, वेंटिलेटर पे लगा है. घर घर में ऑक्सीमीटर का सवाल ही नहीं था. इवन थर्मामीटर वाज नॉट इन एवरी हाउस. You check the fever by looking at the forehead, and if the temperature feels very high, then say, oh, वहाँ से thermometer ले आना, let us borrow a thermometer. Now everybody has oximeter. Everybody is talking remdesivir. Everybody is talking mRNA vaccine, Covaxin, this, that. Who taught us all this? Actually, you will be surprised. Even in the medical school curriculum in MBBS, and I saw the AIMS MBBS curriculum, there is less than 1 lecture on virus. That is all they are taught, that virus is a very small thing, microorganism. More than that, viruses का classification, एक उसमें होता है Baltimore classification, 7 तरह के वायरस होते हैं depending upon the DNA, RNA. ये सब आपके डॉक्टर को नहीं सिखाया गया था. ये सब अभी सीखा है डॉक्टरों ने, और हमने साथ साथ सीखा है. क्योंकि डॉक्टरी जानते थे, वो ज्यादा समझ पाए. हम डॉक्टरी नहीं जानते थे, हम कम समझ पाए. But the entire nation got educated about COVID in real time situation. This is what the new world is about. You cannot wait कि कोई आपको पढ़ाएगा. And I am saying this because one day it happened with me. I was talking to some people and talking them about emerging technologies. So as artificial intelligence है, machine learning है, Internet of Things है, 3D printing है, blockchain है, 5G है, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on and so forth. And then somebody said in the audience, sir, ये सब syllabus में कब आएगा? And then it occurred to me कि syllabus में तो कभी नहीं आएगा. You cannot wait for it to come to the syllabus. And therefore, everybody has to be a teacher. Everybody has to be a learner. Whatever you know. See, mobile में क्या हुआ? कोई qualified teacher थोड़ी था. CTET पास करा हुआ, NCT का कोर्स करा हुआ, जिसको जो आता था उसने बता दिया. आपका काम चल गया, आप आगे बढ़ गए, फिर आपने दूसरों को बता दिया. This is how learning in the future will happen. You will have pure academic, जो PhD भी करेंगे, DLit भी करेंगे, research paper भी लिखेंगे, article भी लिखेंगे, but वो trickle down का नहीं होगा. Simultaneously होगा. There will be one people who will learn with a research attitude, one will learn with a using attitude. And this is how it is going to happen. And this is why it is very important. So the whole idea that learning is going to change is it. And it is a skill. Now, what happens is that अभी तक emphasis रहा है learning में subject में. आप उनसे पूछिए तो वो कहेंगे आपको हम PGT बनाएंगे अगर आपने BA पास किया है, और क्या NTT बनाएंगे अगर मैट्रिक पास है. अगर आपको पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट 12वीं का पढ़ाना है तो आपने पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट पढ़ा हो. What you have read was important for teaching. No, what you can teach is important for teaching. And that is why I use the expression teaching as a skill. See, आपने क्या पढ़ा, क्या जाना, ये छोड़ दीजिए. फिर आपने देखा है कि जब आप ये देख लीजिए, जो जितने लोग गीता के ऊपर व्याख्यान करते हैं, कोई संस्कृत के पंडित थोड़ी हैं, वो गीता पे व्याख्यान करते हैं. जितने लोग बापू मुरारी ये वो जो रामायण के बारे में और राम कथा सुनाते हैं, वो कोई वाल्मीकि की तरह पंडित थोड़ी हैं। तो ये हमने एक बड़ी गलत चीज सोची है कि जो पंडित है वो ज्यादा अच्छा पढ़ा सकता है। ऐसा नहीं है, दो अलग अलग चीजें हैं। ज्ञान अर्जन करना, ज्ञान को बढ़ाना, और दूसरे को समझाना, ये बिल्कुल अलग चीज। कुछ लोगों में दोनों होती हैं। हमारे बड़े फेवरेट प्रोफेसर थे रिचर्ड फाइनमैन, वो बड़े भारी साइंटिस्ट भी थे, नोबेल प्राइज भी उनको मिला, और बड़े भारी एक्सप्लेनर भी थे, और वो कहीं कर सकते थे। आइंस्टाइन आइंस्टाइन ने कहा है, अगर आप 6 साल के बच्चे को नहीं समझा सकते तो आपको आता जाता नहीं है। आप बड़े बड़े शब्दों में लोगों को घुमा रहे हैं, पर अगर आप 6 साल के बच्चे को नहीं समझा सकते हैं तो आपको आता जाता नहीं है। तो ये बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि हम टीचिंग को कैसे करें। और मैं इस पे भी आगे बढ़ूंगा कुछ हद तक कि वो है। तो क्या है कि अभी हमने क्या कर लिया है कि सब्जेक्ट जानना ज्यादा जरूरी है, लेकिन नहीं, टीचिंग। जैसे अभी आपको बताएं, बिजनेस वाले लोग ये जान गए, बिजनेस में टेक्निकल लोगों को अलग मानते हैं, मैनेजरियल लोग अलग मानते हैं। और टेक्निकल लोगों से सुपीरियर होता है मैनेजमेंट वाला। अक्सर जो सीईओ होता है वो टेक्नोलॉजी का एक्सपर्ट नहीं होता है। तो अच्छा टीचर भी सब्जेक्ट मैटर एक्सपर्ट होना जरूरी नहीं है। वो ये जानना चाहिए कि लोगों को सीखने में बाधाएं क्या आती हैं। तो अच्छे मैनेजर का काम यह है कि प्रोजेक्ट में जो बाधाएं आ रही हैं, द बैरियर्स टू प्रोग्रेस, दे शुड बी रिमूव्ड. The role of the teacher is the barriers to learning should be removed. There is no use saying how brilliant he is or how good he is and that he got first class first in his MSc. That is only going to intimidate students. The students, you have to resolve the cognitive barriers which are coming in their cognitive journey. And that is what is important. So this is what, and that is why it is a skill. And if it is a skill, it can be learned. And it can be learned by defining the skill and drill and practice of that skill. हमारे यहाँ कुछ हिंदी में कहावत होती है, करत करत अभ्यास होश हो जान करे. So this is how. So what I'm saying is teachers must also practice their skills and so on. So the idea is, this is the beginning of a conversation that I want to start to try Wonderful. To take this thing. The other thing that I want to say, चूंकि हमारे साथ फौजी है, बड़ा important है ये, कि 21st century teacher has to be given 21st century tools for teaching. अब आप आज के फौजी को मुगलों के जमाने की सेना में तो नहीं लगा देंगे ना कि तुम जाके लड़ाओ. तो आप नए नए वेपन्स लेते हो, नए नए एयरक्राफ्ट लेते हो, नए नए ये लेते हो, वो करते हो, तो पुराने उससे तो नहीं करते हो ना. सो आप टीचर को अनआर्म्ड कॉम्बैट में भेज देते हो क्लासरूम में. तो चला जाए क्लासरूम में, ही इज ऑल्सो फाइटिंग अ वॉर. ही इज फाइटिंग अ वॉर अगेंस्ट इग्नोरेंस. Is fighting a war against ignorance of those 40 kids who were before him. And you are saying you will go unarmed combat. There is nothing which is given to you to help you learn. So he has to have the latest methods and tools. I'm not calling them weapons of learning, but tools of learning. And those tools today are technological tools. Just like the Army, Navy and Air Force say, give us modern tools. Put more budget to give us modern tools. Educators must also get salary alone is not enough. And what they had learned when they had studied their masters is not enough. 21st century teaching means 21st century tools for teaching must also be used. And we have here an example. What Dr. Sharma has said, what we are doing is an example of a 21st century tool for learning. That otherwise, and this is what is going to be very important. Now, what I said to you is actually the essence of what the UN General Assembly called Sustainable Development Goals, and Goal 4 is the goal about education. What it says, everybody must get a very good education, high quality education from preschool to, they have 10 goals and 15, this thing, from before school to elementary school to vocational training to university education, etc. All this must be there. You cannot do this with unarmed combat. You have to provide the appropriate technology for this purpose. So I will share with you another interesting story with many, all of you have an idea of the computers and so on. Computers were not always there. Computers as machines. Today, when you say computer, you think of a machine. It was not always there. In fact, till 1950s, The word computer meant a human being whose job was to make calculations. So he was called a computer. And there were lots of them. Again, I will go back because I have a Fauji in the midst. One of the things that are very interesting to calculate is when you take even the age-old cannon and you fire a cannonball, how far will this cannonball go? These were called artillery range tables. So at what angle do you keep the cannon and what speed the cannon will leave? That will show where it will go and it has to reach the target. Now in class 8 physics, you are taught that if the v is the velocity, alpha is the angle of this, then v sine alpha is the vertical velocity, v cos alpha is the horizontal velocity, so it will become 0. Time will be 2 v cos alpha upon 2 v sine alpha, so it's a v squared sine alpha cos alpha upon 2, and therefore you can prove that at 45 degrees it is maximum. But I don't always want it at the maximum. I want it at the target. So I have to do all the sine alpha, cos alpha calculation for different values of alpha. This guy called the calculator used to do this. Guy called the computer used to do this. And all these army people had these range tables, which they used to be able to. In fact, when computers first came as machines, their first application in defense was to calculate these range tables. And in around 1950s, when machines called computers started coming, first the calculation of the machine was verified by the human computers, whether what it is calculating is correct or not. Because you can't trust the machine just like that. The human being you have trusted for the last 10 years, you know he's very good in calculation. And there also you would have 2 human beings do it and cross-check and then etc. So you could trust that calculation. Now some machine comes, it says, I will calculate. They have to get it verified. So it took a long time before then they finally replaced all human computers with machines, but there was a designation. And in fact, there is a very nice book called When Computers Were Human. This is written by a person whose mother was such a computer in one of these institutions in the US. So computers were human. Now, what I'm trying to say is that this is how technology gets adopted because it solves the problem. Even today, if you see, why are we adopting all this Zoom? Because it solved a problem. Before that, distinctly it was written, mobiles will not be allowed in the classroom. Electronic communication is not allowed. I come from Indira Gandhi University where we did a lot of e-learning. AICT, UGC were not willing to accept that kind of e-learning. They said, you must do something, etc. It is only a crisis which makes you do it. Another very important story of the crisis is the US history. So when the United States formed, it created a constitution. In the constitution, one of the things was that every 10 years, they will do a census. They will count all the people. And once you have the census, then you will decide how you are, like here also we, constituency counting and delimiting and new delimiting. So you have to count and you have to have a census. So from 1790 or whatever the census started, it went every 10 years. But when the time it was 1880, the number of people had become very large compared to the hand-holding computers of that time. And it was 1888, and they were not able to process the results of 1880. And they said, then what is going to happen now? By the time we process it, it will be time for 1890 census. So then a person called Hermann Hollerith, he came up with a concept of punch cards, which he used, and he created machines which could then collate, compile, etc. And eventually, as many of you know, it became the company called IBM. So it started with punch cards, Hollerith, etc., and became IBM. What I'm saying is, similarly, our desire to have this SDG goals and education for all, high quality education for all, will require a new kind of technology which will have to come. And the unarmed teacher will be equipped with that technology so that he can fight the war against ignorance and make sure that more and more people are able to move on. Today, if people are not enough, not knowing enough or not able, it is not because the teacher is bad. It's just that the teacher cannot do. How many people can a human being individually look at? I mean, if you ever go to a KG classroom in school, you will be horrified. How does the teacher cope with these 60 people. किसी का lunch खा लिया, किसी का कुछ खा लिया, किसी को कुछ मार दिया, किसी को कुछ कर दिया. It is not easy. Without support of technology to scale, we will never be able to solve that. It will remain like the US census or like our literacy mission and so on and so forth. So the message is that we are talking about new teaching and teaching with technology. I'm not getting into exactly what technology, but whatever is the best technology of the time. And Dr. Sharma has already indicated that the mobile is a hot candidate. And UNESCO for last 10 years has a conference telling you how mobile can be such a good thing for learning and so on and so forth. So this is the kind of thing that I wanted to sort of do. And as I said, that we can have some interaction, etc., because I don't want it to be a monologue, although I can keep it. So Dr. Sharma, you decide whether you want to raise something or you want the audience to raise something so that we have more interaction.
Sir, audience, we have got Gaga. There are almost 500 plus people watching from the world over, and they just are writing, and they're just writing great enthusiasm, great session, out of the box thinking, out of the box session. There is nobody raising a question, but I have got few requests to make to you, because it's a wisdom over the lifetime which is traveling through you. If you see it, the program is going live on the ICSI YouTube channel, sir. You can see it. It's going on over there where people are posting, sir. Now, you have used 3 words: real-time situation. You use the word somewhere in between real-time situation and emerging technologies.
Okay.
Sir, why are we teaching so many subjects? Why are we completing syllabi, curriculum, quantity, whereas the need is something very nice you have mentioned? Why education is not related to real-time situation?
Great. So I think that's very interesting, very relevant question. It is, as we said, because times have changed. Now, there are very clearly, just like we sometimes say BC and AD, there are 2 distinct parts. One, when the world did not have computers, and when the world had computers. And now world has very good computers. Now, when the world did not have computers, there was no way except that certain human beings called teachers memorized the content and shared it to the next set of people. So people like me belong to that. So I have a very good memory. I can still tell you pi is 3.14159265, log pi is 0.4972, square root 2 is 1.414, square root 3 is 1.732, and any number of formulas and equations and so on. And it's not only in English literature. I can quote to you Charles Dickens: it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, and whatever, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, etc. Now, the point was there was no other time. Today, by the time I say pi is 3.14, you will have found pi to 300 places. Now you say, we all know what is pi. What do we do next? So this is the point that I'm trying to make, that the earlier point was we were storage and taking on the information to the next generation. Now that generation, as we said, real time, it also has the information. If today Google does anything, I and the kid in class 10 will know about it at the same time. The difference is, because of my experience, I have a better understanding what has happened, whereas that person will be limited to the report that he sees. But if he spends 10 more minutes going to YouTube and Wikipedia and this thing and that thing, he will also have a fairly good understanding. So this is what I mean by real-time learning. Now, the analogy is very similar to another situation. As humans, you see, we cannot eat so much grass. We can eat only a few set of vegetables, which we can digest, and very few we can eat raw. The others we have to cook. But that cow can eat everything and gives us excellent milk out of it. Right? We are supposed to be superior. The cow, the horse, the ass, everybody, goat, they can all eat anything and do it. Whereas we say, no, we need something which is done or cooked or processed, etc., etc. The point is, our stomach does not have the capacity to digest all that stuff. Similarly, for learning, we have created a situation where whatever is being published, see what is coming in the newspaper, we understand. What's coming in the TV, we understand. What's coming in the cinema hall, we understand. But what's in the book, we don't understand. We need a teacher to make us. So if we could train ourselves to understand directly what things are. And the reason is, it is very interesting. I've thought of this in some detail. People who have a sort of experience of village know that cows eat something, then they bring it back again and they eat it again. It is called chewing the cud in English. And in Hindi, it is called जुगाली करना. So पहले जो होता है खाना नहीं पूरा जाता है. पहले वो कुछ करते फिर उसको जुगाली करते. And this is what we need to do for learning. पहले हमने पढ़ा, हमको समझ में नहीं आया, कोई बात नहीं. हमने जितना नहीं समझ में आया उसका कट बना के रख लिया, वो कर लिया. हमने फिर से उसको प्रोसेस किया, फिर समझ में आ जाएगा. तो गाय के 4 पेट होते हैं और वो 4, हम भी अगर ऐसे 4 स्टेजेस में सीखना शुरू करें, जिसको कई बार आप देखिएगा SQR करके टेक्निक कहते हैं, ये कहते हैं पहले सर्वे, क्वेश्चन, रीड, रिफ्लेक्ट एंड सो ऑन, एंड देन यू विल बी एबल टू डू दैट. सो यू विल नॉट नीड एन इंटरमीडियरी टू टेल यू, जस्ट लाइक यू डोंट नीड एन इंटरमीडियरी टू एक्सप्लेन टू यू व्हाट. नहीं, छोटे बच्चे को तो मूवी में भी समझाना पड़ता है कि देखो ये फ्लैशबैक है, ये ऐसे है, ये ऐसे. एज ही ग्रोज अप ही अंडरस्टैंड्स. So if while educating, we create into a situation that they don't need to have an explainer again, because you have taught him the skill of learning how to learn. And this is, in fact, there's a full-fledged word given to this called learning power. Guy Claxton has coined this learning power. आपने भी लाइफ में देखा होगा, कुछ आपके साथ के कलीग रहे होंगे जो बड़े तेजी से सब कुछ सीख लेते हैं, कुछ है वो नहीं सीख पाते हैं. और हम तो इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी से आए, वहाँ के सब लोग एक नया सब्जेक्ट तो सीखते ही थे. IAS में आने के लिए 2 सब्जेक्ट में मास्टर्स चाहिए. एक उन्होंने फिजिक्स किया, दूसरा ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री सीख लिया. फिजिक्स किया, इंटरनेशनल लॉ सीख लिया, कुछ और. क्यों? क्योंकि उनका लर्निंग पावर थी. सब्जेक्ट, सो जैसे गाड़ी की हॉर्स पावर होती है या किसी मशीन की होती है, मोटर की होती है, बिजली की, अब आप उसको फिर कहीं भी लगा सकते हैं. उसको पानी सींचने के लिए लगा सकते हैं, उसको ढोने के लिए लगा सकते हैं, ये पंजाब में जुगाड़ करके उसको चलाने के लिए लगा सकते हैं, क्योंकि आपके पास पावर है. तो जो हम कहना चाह रहे हैं कि जब आप सीखते हैं या टीचर आपको सिखाता है या आपको आपको ये लर्निंग पावर डेवलप करनी है कि कोई भी चीज होगी. जस्ट लाइक आपके पास अगर मस्कुलर पावर है तो आपको कोई चीज हिलानी है, कोई चीज दिलानी है, कभी किसी की पिटाई भी करनी है, आप कर सकते हैं. अनआर्म्ड कॉम्बैट भी कर सकते हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि आपकी फिजिकल पावर स्ट्रांग है. ऐसे ही अगर आपकी लर्निंग पावर स्ट्रांग हो जाएगी तो अगर आप कोई बताए न बताए तो भी आप. और एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग साइकोलॉजिकल फिनोमेनन है, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग और इम्पोर्टेंट है. हम सबसे कहते हैं कि पढ़ो पढ़ो पढ़ो, और वो नहीं पढ़ता है. अगर तुम कहो किसी को कि देखो ये तुम्हारे बस की बात नहीं है, तब वो ज्यादा पढ़ेगा. तो ये तुम्हारे बस की बात नहीं है, ये तो वही लोग कर सकते हैं जिन्होंने हार्वर्ड में पढ़ा हो या ईटन में पढ़ा हो. तो वो कहेगा नहीं, क्या ऐसी क्या बात है इसमें जो मैं नहीं कर सकता. सो दिस इज अनदर मोटिवेशन कॉल्ड नेगेटिव मोटिवेशन, where by saying that this is not capable, you are not capable of doing this, the person gets this thing. See, it is just like, मैं कई बार याद करता हूँ कि मुझे दूध पीना अच्छा नहीं लगता था. माँ बड़े प्यार से तरह तरह से उसमें बॉर्नवीटा मिला के, ये मिला के, वो मिला के, एंड देन आई रियलाइज कि अगर मैं थोड़ा गरीब होता, दूध बड़ी मुश्किल से मिलता, तो कहीं मिल रहा होता, मैं खड़ाखट पी जाता. अब चूंकि माँ इतने उससे कर रही है तो मुझे लगता मैं एहसान कर रहा हूँ कि दूध पी रहा हूँ. तो ऐसे बच्चों को लगता है हम एहसान कर रहे हैं कि पढ़ रहे हैं. अरे भाई, तो किसी के ऊपर एहसान नहीं कर रहे हो, पढ़ रहे हो. तुम्हारी इग्नोरेंस हट रही है. जो चीज तुम्हें नहीं आती थी वो तुम जान रहे हो. अब इन लोगों ने पहले से तुम्हारे लिए प्लानिंग करके लिए तुम्हारे लिए दूध और दही और मक्खन रख दिया, तो तुम कहोगे नहीं खाऊंगा. तो ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है कि उनको थोड़ा बहुत ये डिनायल वाला भी चाहिए. अलग अलग मोटिवेशन होते हैं. सी क्या है, दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम विद एजुकेशन एज अ सिस्टम. We don't cater to the motivation of the person. The motivation, and आप तो जानते होंगे ये, there are theories of motivation, and broadly, universally, वैसे तो हर एक का यूनिक होता है, but broadly there are 4 things which drive people. The first is of course money. So money drives everybody, but money का एक threshold होता है कि उसके बाद नहीं ड्राइव करता है. तो कुछ आपको ड्राइव करेगा, बट आपकी बेसिक नीड्स पूरी हो जाए, आपका वो हो जाए, तो मनी विल नॉट कंटिन्यूसली ड्राइव यू. for most people, except if you are Warren Buffett or whatever, then all you want to do. The next thing is that you want power. So मेरे नीचे इतने लोग काम करते हैं, मेरे इतने ये होते हैं, मतलब if something gets you power, you want to do that. So if you say education will get you power, it will do that. बहुत सारे लोग हैं वो actually IAS बनना चाहते हैं, पर पढ़ाई इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि UPSC क्रॉस करूंगा तब मैं IAS बनूंगा, तब मेरी बड़ी पावर होगी. उनका पढ़ाई से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री में, पर उनको ये है कि ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री करने से नंबर आएंगे तो मुझे पावर मिलेगी. तो ये पावर दूसरा होता है. तीसरा होता है इज्जत. आपने देखो कि गली के गुंडे में भी होता है, इतने सारे लोग मुझे पूरे, आप आ जाइए कहीं मोहल्ले में, नाम ले लीजिएगा कि छोटू राम कहाँ रहता है, सब बता देंगे कि मेरी पूरी इज्जत है. और कितने लड़कियों की शादी रुक जाती है इसलिए कि माँ बाप की इज्जत पे खतरा हो जाता है, ये हो जाता है. The fourth and most interesting one is the sense of achievement. कि कोई और नहीं कर पाया, मैंने किया. I am the first one to do this. अब देखिए इतने सारे आजकल ये लोग इनको कहते भी हैं, क्रेडिट जीवी कहते हैं. हर लोग हर चीज में वो चाहते हैं मैंने किया, ये चीज मैंने पहली बार करी. मुझे भी, मैं भी अपने लेवल में कहता हूँ कि मैंने डिस्टेंस लर्निंग बनाया, मैंने पहली बार ई लर्निंग से MCA करा, मैंने पहली बार ये करा. बिकॉज अचीवमेंट ऑफ डूइंग समथिंग विच अदर्स हैव नॉट डन is another very important thing. These are 4 things. Now, how the teacher tunes this to get them is an important point, that you create a mix of this, match of this, align it to what the people say to create that. Now, one more thing that I want to say is that although I have used the word teaching in the topic, what I actually mean is learning, because teaching and learning go together. तो मैथमेटिक्स में कॉन्सेप्ट होता है मोबियस स्ट्रिप का. मोबियस स्ट्रिप इज एक्चुअली क्वाइट सिंपल एंड मेनी ऑफ यू माइट नो, अदरवाइज यू कैन गूगल मोबियस स्ट्रिप. तो ये जैसे एक सिंपल आप कोई स्ट्रिप ले लीजिए, आप रिबन ले लीजिए, कुछ ले लीजिए. मैंने एक कागज का टुकड़ा लिया, इसमें एक साइड में लिख दिया टीचिंग, दूसरे साइड में लिख दिया लर्निंग. तो अभी हम इसको टिपिकली कहते हैं कि दे आर 2 साइड्स ऑफ द सेम कॉइन या ऑपोजिट. लेकिन क्या है कि अगर इसको आप एक मोड़ देके फिर से यहाँ चिपका दें तो इट बिकम्स अ कंटिन्यूअस स्ट्रिप फ्रॉम टीचिंग टू लर्निंग. इसको मोबियस स्ट्रिप कहते हैं. जो लोग ज्यादा इंटरेस्टेड हैं उनसे कहिएगा कि गूगल कर लेंगे. तो व्हाट इट सेज इज दैट टीचिंग लर्निंग आर 2 साइड्स ऑफ द सेम स्टोरी. एंड मैं आपको इसको थोड़ा और इंटरेस्टिंग तरीके से बताता हूं. तो हम सब लोगों ने स्कूल में न्यूटन्स लॉ पढ़ी है, न्यूटन्स लॉ ऑफ मोशन. आप भूल भी गए होंगे तो मैं याद दिला देता हूं. तो न्यूटन की पहली लॉ बड़ी सिंपल है, बड़ा वो आपको लगेगा कि न्यूटन फर्स्ट लॉ ऑफ मोशन है, पर वो कॉन्सेप्ट बड़ा सिंपल है. व्हाट न्यूटन सेज इज every body will remain in state of rest or uniform motion straight line unless acted upon by an external force. अब ये कॉम्प्लिकेटेड भाषा में इसने क्या कहा है कि अगर कुछ बदलाव नहीं करोगे तो बदलाव नहीं होगा. यही तो कहा उसने कि भाई चाहे उसको रुके से हिलाना है, चाहे हिलने से रोकना है, आपको कुछ फोर्स लगाना पड़ेगा. ये तो दुनिया का नियम है कि भाई आप कुछ नहीं करोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा. हमारे यहाँ भी अगर आप देखिए सारे हमारे उसमें कर्म की बात है, कर्म प्रधान है, कर्म करना है, कर्म करना. वही न्यूटन लॉ ने कह दिया, उसने फिजिक्स के अंदर कह दिया तो लोग डर जाते हैं. तो उसने बेसिकली ये कहा अगर कुछ नहीं करोगे तो कुछ बदलाव नहीं होगा. दूसरी उसने ये कही जो बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है कि एनी फोर्स gives result in acceleration. The force is mass time acceleration. ये बड़ी नई इंसाइट है. तो ये मैं ये कहता हूं कि लर्निंग इंटरवेंशन, व्हेन आई डू अ टीचिंग एंड अ लर्निंग इंटरवेंशन, you not only learn that, you become a better learner. That is the big change that has happened, that you have now become a learner. तो आपने जो चीज सिखाई वो तो सीखी, पर और भी चीजें आप सीख लेंगे. So you have developed in yourself this thing of learning. And तीसरा जो है वो सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग है. To every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. तो जब आप ये पढ़े स्कूल में सिखाया जाता है कि एक्शन यहाँ हुआ तो रिएक्शन उस पे हुआ, तो ये हुआ तो मैं इसको टीचिंग में लाता हूँ. तो पहला, every person remains in the state of ignorance or knowledge unless acted upon by another force. ठीक है भाई, हम खुश हैं अपने में. जब तक आपने हमको फौज की बात नहीं बताई, हमने आपको फिजिक्स की बात नहीं बताई, आप मगन है. न्यूटन फर्स्ट लॉ. दूसरी, जब हमने आपको कुछ बताया तो आपका मन लगने लगा. अच्छा टेक्नोलॉजी में क्या हो रहा है, फिर क्या होगा, फिर क्या होगा, सिर्फ आप वो एक बात तक सीमित नहीं रहते हैं. यू आर नॉट लिमिटेड टू द फैक्ट दैट आई सेड, बट टू अ होल थिंग अराउंड इट. एंड द थर्ड पार्ट इज, to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, is that the learner learns more of the subject, but the teacher learns more about the learner. And this is why in institutions of education, they give the most important classes to the senior teachers, because they know more about the learners. So agar aap fresh MSc hain, you will give an MSc to teach, because their subject matter knowledge is important, pedagogy is not. But if you are going to come and teach school students, then you have to be a very experienced teacher. तो दो बड़े एग्जाम्पल आपको बताता हूँ. रिचर्ड फाइनमैन को फर्स्ट ईयर के क्लासेस इसीलिए दिए गए, उनका ये जो और प्रोफेसर पढ़ाते हैं तो बच्चे फिजिक्स से और अनइंटरेस्टेड हो जाते हैं, यार ये बड़ा खतरनाक सब्जेक्ट है, कौन फिजिक्स पढ़े. फाइनमैन आया, नोबेल प्राइज विनर, अपने जैसे, उसने लोगों का इंटरेस्ट जगा दिया फिजिक्स में. रशिया में जहां की ज्यादा जबरदस्ती की जाती है, लैंडाउ था नोबेल लॉरिएट इन फिजिक्स, उसको कहा तुम हाई स्कूल के बच्चों को पढ़ाओगे. आप यहाँ सोच लीजिए, कोई फिजिक्स में प्रोफेसर भी हो तो स्कूल में जाके बच्चों को नहीं पढ़ाएगा, क्योंकि नहीं मैं नहीं पढ़ाता, मैं तो यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ाता हूँ. तो उनका नहीं, ये बच्चों को ही तो हमें इंटरेस्ट करना है सब्जेक्ट में, तो इसमें वो आपको देखेंगे तो इंटरेस्ट होंगे. सो ये बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें हैं जिसकी वजह से लोगों के अंदर ये इंटरेस्ट हो. और कोई कमेंट क्वेश्चन वगैरह हो तो उसको करें.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. You would be so happy to know our advisor from USA, Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan, has also joined. He's in Texas, he's in Houston, he's at Lamar University, and he's telling such a wonderful session from Professor Pant. At the same time, I'm so very happy to share with you, sir, that we have been joined by Mr. Tyrone D. Brass. Tyrone D. Brass, he is our advisor in Northeast India. And he's also enjoying this particular program. Dekhiye, sir, today I would make a humble request to you, very humble request to you. Kindly don't look towards watch, sir. Please don't look.
नहीं, I will tell you why. See, क्या होता है कि लोगों का भी एक span of attention होता है. They may be enjoying it, but then that degree will reduce. ये इस पे बहुत रिसर्च हो चुकी है. इनफैक्ट लोग तो कहते हैं 10-12 मिनट से ज्यादा का span of attention नहीं होता है, पर ये ठीक है थोड़ा सा ज्यादा है, but we'll
I cannot get a teaser even 10 to 12 minutes from you. You have got so much of wisdom.
हाँ, वो ठीक है.
अब मैं दो चीजें और टच करता हूँ सर. Before I will take a commitment from you today that once in a month you will come to share your wisdom and your knowledge with the entire universe. Let me just come on first northeast part of India. अभी northeast की जब हम बात करते हैं sir, Mr. Tyrone Brass, he says the analogy of the Newton third law is a master stroke. Thank you, Professor Pant. That is, he is writing over here.
Yeah. So but you can tell the Northeast people, I have been a regular visitor to the Northeast, Northeastern Hill University, Shillong तो मैं बहुत गया हूँ. और
अभी हम लेके जाएंगे ना सर आपको, अब हम लेके जाएंगे.
ठीक है.
We would take you from the chamber, we would request you. Now sir, what comes to my mind, the challenges of the bandwidth, the challenges of the connectivity, the challenges of the learning, which are coming in a peculiar, that mountainous terrain, undulated terrain and all. So would you like to give any solution?
Yeah, it's simple. Please. See, I will tell you, and I will tell you because I have first-hand experience on this. So during my thing about e-learning, one private company approached me.
Sir.
And we were talking about e-learning solutions, etc. So मैंने उसको like an academic बताया that, see, I said, a lot of content in education is not changing. What rise in books, etc., is not changing content. So I will give that on a CD-ROM. The entire curriculum, we did this for Indira Gandhi University, all 3 years course content is in the CD-ROM. You can look at it anytime you want. And it is the interaction that we do through the internet. And you know what this fellow told me? He says, you are a professor, but we sell internet bandwidth. अगर bandwidth नहीं खरीदेगा तो मेरा क्या होगा? So this is where all educators have got wrong. See, they are telling you to be connected. You don't need to be connected. See, the point is, and I will give you the technical word for it. It is asynchronous learning. And actually, asynchronous learning is better than synchronous learning. And I will share with you a story on this. What happens is the companies want you to buy bandwidth. Same video, which I could give you in advance or give you, they want you to see every time. They want you to show the same slide every time. So it is the company. He told me bluntly, he said, Professor Rahenge, we are in the business of selling bandwidth. Now you imagine so many people seeing the same video again and again, how much money is being wasted. Now, I will give you an example. I will tell you why. So remember the formal word, asynchronous learning is better than synchronous learning. In the pre-technology age, see, in the pre-technology age, there was no way I could do asynchronous learning. So मुझे teacher को भी वहाँ लाना था, students को भी वहाँ लाना था, उनको within hearing distance रखना था, because I remember when I started my teaching career, the two advice given to me were speak loudly so that the person at the last row can also hear, and make a circle which looks like a circle to that last person, not like an ellipse. So this is where we started. But today it is not so. And I will share with you a very important story to prove this point. There is a person called Salman Khan. Not our Salman Khan, person who's done it. Now, this Salman Khan is a Bangladeshi. He studied from MIT, was in a good job, and he got into education, and now, of course, in a very interesting way. So they also have large families. So there was a family get-together. So in a large family, you can imagine Salman Khan was a hero. MIT there, he was doing very well. So he says a cousin of his, maybe 15, 16 years old, called Nadira, she came up to him and said, Salman, bhai, I am finding maths very difficult. Can you help me in some sense? Because for them, Salman is a genius. So Salman said at that time, with a webcam, he tried to, in real time, live this thing, synchronously, try to teach her something, right? Doing this thing and then that. And he found that nothing was happening. So then it occurred to him that there is a big difference between his thinking, his pace, his thing, and that of the poor girl. They were not matching. So what he did is, he said, okay, so what he did, he created videos of what he was doing. So simple pen and paper and ink, etc., made some videos as he was talking. So he did those processes steps in maths and did a voice recording and sent her that video. Now the video she could play at her convenience. Repeat. See, if I'm speaking to you and I use some word ubiquitous and you go, you have not even caught the word, so you don't even know what you missed, right? But whereas if I've given it to you in writing as a WhatsApp message or whatever, it is with you to go look up in the dictionary, etc., go through that text again and again till you understand it. And suddenly he found that she was doing better. Then she said, why don't we put it on YouTube so that many more people can see? So he started putting his lectures on YouTube. And there he also talks. But anyway, the interesting part is, around the same time, Bill Gates was looking for some mass resource material for his son. And he found that. And he found it very good. So Bill Gates adopted it. And once Bill Gates started adopting and acknowledging, then Salman Khan became very famous. Everybody was giving him money, etc. So it is a free resource. So I tell all my people, I said, in which other thing can your son and Bill Gates' son be on the same page, except in Khan Academy and learning from Khan Academy? So asynchronous is better. But these people who are sending you bandwidth will not let you understand that asynchronous is better. They will try to say, nahi, live hai, teacher hai, wo hai. And we have this wrong illusion. Live mein nahi samajh mein aata hai. See, you're talking to a person, his speed of thinking, etc., is so very different. He cannot come down, and he's not a school teacher. See, a person who's a school teacher can know that I should speak at a slow pace, give lots of example, repeat it again. Senior people are not used to repeating themselves because they're talking to adults. So, but in school, you have to repeat it. You have to make it systematic, right? And therefore, And that's why I have adopted WhatsApp. So because WhatsApp, I will send you a message. When it's convenient, you reply. When it's convenient, you read. And it does not require much bandwidth. And even in the so-called lowest level phone, which is called the feature phone, that WhatsApp app will run. But obviously, people who are selling bandwidth don't want you to know this. So they want to sell you bandwidth on this thing.
Sir, before we come to the closing remarks, and as you had been very kind, and I want to have more and more, but I think you have a time limitation with yours.
Yeah. Also, this is a reasonable thing. All over the world,
yes.
the standard lecture time is 50 minutes.
So I wish to request you, this your WhatsApp forum and this your WhatsApp analogy and your WhatsApp technology, the LMP, what you have created for the education, would you be kind enough to spend 2 minutes on that, sir?
No, so see, LMP is just basically in name of my parents, and I said to do a trust. You don't have to be Bill Gates. Even if you have very little money, you can create a trust. It's not a big thing. It is basically things which I do, and to give an entity to it, I've called it LMP Trust. It is only my money. There is no other people's investment, etc. But the WhatsApp is, I have created a whole series of things on WhatsApp, and I've been doing it for several years. And therefore, there is a fair amount of what I should say stability in the system. And in fact, in one situation, I had a very interesting thing. It was an all India group. So I was speaking English for most of the time. Then suddenly people came with Hindi thing. हमें हिंदी चाहिए, हिंदी चाहिए. वो हिंदी कहे तो इंग्लिश वाला कहे, तमिलनाडु का तेलुगु वाला कहे कि नहीं, no, only English. So what I did was I used to make the PowerPoint slides equivalent in English, but then give a text narration first in English, then in Hindi. And I said, you can now do that. So WhatsApp has a lot of facility. There is audio track, so you feel that you're hearing me. So you're hearing my voice. There is PowerPoint slides. So just like in a traditional thing, we give PowerPoint slides and then the speaker speaks. So I will give some PowerPoint slides and then I will have an audio message, then some more. Except in a traditional lecture, after every slide, a person has to speak because only one slide can remain on the screen at a time. I sometimes speak after several slides. So I can say 4 or 5 slides and then give a collective narration around that. And then I give references to books and links to other people's YouTube videos, this, that, whatever. It is a far more enriching experience.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Mr. Tyrone, you are watching this program from the Northeast. You are the advisor for all the 8 states for education over there. You're taking care of the school education. And here I have got the legend of Indian education, Professor M.M. Pant sir. I make a request in your presence, Mr. Tyrone, and I make a humble request to Professor M.M. Pant sir from our chamber. We would like to engage his services. And we would like to get him connected with the Northeast with a special program. And that has to become, because when you say the bandwidth and when you say the connectivity, when you say other issues, we will go on his WhatsApp technology and we'll go on to that. I will take it further. It's my commitment to you from this chamber today, when we are coming out of these crises and pandemic situation and the Omicron and all those kind of things. Now, finally, sir, you are also with the technology. You're a taco savvy. You're also very good at science. You're also a founder and a creator and initial phase of Indira Gandhi Open University. I am convinced, I'm younger to you. As a younger brother, I'm convinced that education can be taken the best possible way through technology. Yeah. It can be taken through the technology because we have a challenge of quantity, we have a challenge of quality, and coming from, because you gave today references of such a beautiful reference of the armed forces, I was touched so much that I felt I have put on my green uniform once again. And when you were talking about that, I want to reach to the last person, to the last milestone, to the last village, which is otherwise inaccessible throughout the year due to harsh weather, climatic condition, other conditions and all that. Sir, please give me two things before we close today's session. Do you feel, I feel, that is my personal opinion, do you feel as a legend of technology? And if I talk about e-learning, and if I talk about your MCA, if I talk about your IGNOU, if I talk about developing all the distance education and everything and studying so much of it, sir, are you convinced that education can be taken with the help of technology to the multiplier layers?
Absolutely. And I will make it more fundamental.
Sir.
I have also been a lawyer. In
Sir.
law, there is a principle that ignorance of the law is no excuse. In fact, they say that in Latin, all of you know ignorantia juris non excuse. So it says everybody is supposed to know the law, right? I go one step further. I said in life, ignorance is no excuse.
Wow.
Law mein to maaf bhi ho jayega, but life mein to consequence bhugatna padega. And therefore, what we are doing is a war against ignorance. And that is why I was able to relate to that metaphor. And that is the point, that if we treat this not as a simple thing, see, let me go back, and I'm touching somewhere. See, what we have so far thought of same education in the religious mode, that we want to convert people from uneducated to educated. No, we have a war against ignorance. And we have to make that thing. And it is very interesting because in our constitution, Article 51AH directive principle says that it is the duty of every citizen to develop a scientific temper and a spirit of inquiry and reform. This is what we are talking about. And if you want to go back to our tradition, Asato ma sadgamaya tamso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya, again we are coming back to the same thing. From darkness lead us to light, from untruth lead us to truth. Today the truth is the scientific truth, because you want truth established by evidence, etc. So this is why it is, education is much more important than being given to a director of education or deputy director or some additional secretary, etc. It is the collective effort of the citizen. That's why I wanted to create this thing about saying that teaching is a skill which everybody has and must develop further.
Teaching is a skill in everybody, and this is a struggle, or this is an effort against ignorance.
Yeah,
and
it's a war against ignorance. Treat it as a war against ignorance.
Wow, wow. And finally, sir, before I close down, can I have a commitment from you, sir, that you would be kind enough to come on the chamber once in a month? And initially,
sure.
Initially, I want to start a program with you. Mr. Tyrone, you have posted a comment over here. Definitely, Doc, we are looking forward to have Professor Pant in Northeast. Your comment has come after Mr. Raman Kumar and Anamika Subba. You are sandwiched between both. So I make a commitment from the chamber. We would get Professor M.M. Pant sir with us, and let's organize one mega event for the Northeast children, Northeast teachers.
I'm giving you a response right away.
Sir.
Learning how to learn has been identified in the new education policy as a major point of departure.
Sir.
So why don't you say that Professor M.M. Pant will do 4 sessions on learning how to learn, with your focus on Northeast, but for almost anybody. Because if that is the key skill, and it is something with new education policy is saying, so we are doing this with pursuance of the goal of the new education policy. See, what happens is that learning how to learn is a secret, which some people have, and they're not telling others. No. And the reason they're not telling others is that he will also become, so if I want to be a topper, he will also become topper. I want to get into IIT, he will also get into IIT. So those people who are good at learning how to learn don't want others to know.
Okay.
So let this be the topic. You want it once a month, so we can have it over 4 months?
No,
One,
sir. Sir,
huh.
sir, 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 I'm a hungry child. I'm in a great hurry. I don't want to go that way. Just a second, sir. A lot of people are watching. A lot of people and comments are coming. Two things. Can we have these 4 sessions on 4 weekends?
Very good.
Right, sir. And secondly, sir, what will be the duration of the session, sir?
About an hour or so.
About an
Then,
hour.
see, the
About an hour.
duration will be about an hour,
Right,
but I
sir.
will share with you some resources which you
Sir,
can share with all the participants for them to pursue.
right, sir. Right, sir.
So links to videos, links to articles, links to this, etc., etc. So I'm not going to say everything which others have already said very well. To that, I
Wonderful,
will
sir.
give links. I
Wonderful,
will
sir.
add these things about strategy. So
Strategy.
learning how to learn, and we'll have it over 4 weekends.
Sir.
1 hour session on Zoom where I will be speaking and doing curation, and I will send you in advance some material which you can distribute to people in advance. Now, some
Wonderful,
of
sir.
the people who know this can think of this as a method called flipped learning. In
Okay.
flipped learning, this is what we do. We give some material in advance so that they can even be ready with questions which they want to ask. So,
Wonderful, sir.
वो हो जाएगा.
Wonderful,
ठीक है?
sir. Wonderful, sir.
ठीक है.
And people are asking, could it be possible on Saturdays?
Sure. मतलब,
Right, sir.
मतलब,
Right, sir.
see,
Right,
if I
sir.
want to, see, it's very simple. If I want to help these people,
Yes, sir.
then their convenience is an important parameter.
Fine. Finally, sir. Wonderful. Wonderful. Because, see, sir, I started in a very humble way. I started my uniform, my first salary, my career, my rank, my everything from the Northeast part of India. And I personally feel, sir, we owe a lot to Northeast. They have been deprived of many things for quite some time. The time has come. We have to bring them in the main fold, the best possible way, whatever we can do. So, ladies and gentlemen, ICSI over here makes a commitment. We will be doing 4 weekends, 4 Saturdays, very special sessions with Professor M.M. Pant, sir. That's a learning how to learn. It will be about an hour session. There'll be a flipped learning mode. You will be getting the material in advance. And Mr. Tyrone D. Brass from Tura, from Garo Hills, our advisor would be the in charge over there. And Madam Julie Subba, who is taking care of the Northeast with us from the chamber. We would request her to coordinate with Mr. Tyrone. Let's get maximum people in the fold. Please appreciate, it's a humble service from our side, from the chamber and from Professor M.M. Pant's side. We are doing it because we want to serve the Northeast India the best possible way, whatsoever. And at the same time, he says, it's not exclusively for the Northeast. Other people can also join wherever you are. Ultimately, ICSI's vision is, and I'm very strongly convinced in my mind, India cannot surpass in manufacturing sector overnight China. We cannot. Number 2, services sector, we have human source, we have got human resource, but it has to become human developed resource and source. And if our children, if our youngsters, I'm not calling teachers. There is a beautiful term which has come on last Sunday from Dr. Priya Balakrishnan from USA through the efforts of Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajan all the way from Texas, and where she told we need neuro coach. The new term to be used for the teacher is neuro coach. That means you would need wellness experts. You will need yoga. You will need meditation. You'll need happiness. You'll need humor. You will need music, art, craft, culture, heritage, everything to be ducktailed, not a theoretical education ecosystem. All of us, we will take the blessings of Professor M.M. Pant, sir. Today, I'm not.
So
today,
I need to say something. I'm so delighted,
please.
So delighted that this word neuro coach has been used, because I was saying that when machines will take over much of teaching, existing teachers will become cognitive development facilitators. And I use the word that teachers are going to be neuroscientists. And I distinguish that the neurosurgeons and neuro thing we see in hospitals are wartime neuroscientists. We are peacetime neuroscientists. Because they're treating with patients who have lost something, who have this thing, have this thing. We are peacetime neuroscientists who are developing the brain during peacetime. The doctors are doing it. The doctor in the hospital are wartime neuroscientists because something has already happened. They have to do it urgently. We are peacetime neuroscientists. Over the period of 10, 12 years that the child is in school and there are care, we are going to make sure that his brain is developed in the right way. And there are very important things to understand. Neuroplasticity and artificial intelligence. These are the two things which are going to drive teaching in the future. I am building towards that. And I'm so happy that the word neurocoach has already been used, because it is actually, see, in our education, we take some test at class and you will never know maths. No, neuroplasticity says you can learn, provided you keep at it. And we dismiss, including IITs. If you don't know physics, chemistry, maths on that day at 12, you can't learn engineering. No, I will develop. See, engineering can be about design, about creativity, not about solving equations only. So if I could not solve equation in 3 minutes on that day in May, that doesn't mean I am no good. So it is very interesting. I'm very delighted that this neurocourse thing has come. So we will develop in our schematics how AI and neuroscience is helping us become better teachers and better learners.
Wow.
Oh, this is amazing. ये तो Northeast छोड़ी, ये तो पूरी दुनिया के लिए हो गया.
So Dr. Priya ma'am, I know you are at present in California and you wrote to me just now, it is 6 a.m. in the morning in Los Angeles and you're watching this particular program. So your views are endorsed by Professor M.M. Pant, because Dr. Priya told me I need approximately 1 lakh neuro coach to be developed immediately from India. I said we will work in that particular direction.
Very good. So let her give her ideas and we will do this.
Yes. So Professor M.M. Pant sir and Mr. Tyrone and our Julie Subba ma'am, I give and request to both of you, start working on this idea. All the professors, teachers, educators, counselors, those are watching this particular program from the world over, ICSI is committed because we want to make global teachers.
No,
we want to bring global educators. We are focused on that. We have got surplus human youth, young people. And if they go world over where the population is shrinking and new kids are not coming, let them help those families, not only as a teachers, but as a family member. And that is the neuro coach. And Professor Pant says neuroplasticity and the artificial intelligence. And he also used a word, teachers will become the future neuroscientists. Wow.
Yeah. Peacetime neuroscientists. The doctors are wartime neuroscientists.
Okay, peacetime neuroscientists. Sir, it's an amazing, it's always a treat to the heart, to the soul, to the spirit, and to the vision. We have come a long way. During the pandemic also, you had come, you shared your vision that point of time as well. And today, once again, you have given your insight, your heart and soul to us. We look forward to another session because my thirst, my hunger has not gone. I want to know from the Indira Gandhi Open University what exactly happened in some other session. I want to also understand the MOOC only given up to 40% and what all is going on, the digital university, couple of things are there.
I think you can ignore all that. See, we are onto now the frontiers of new things.
Right. Sir.
So let us focus on these things. Those are all old things.
Wonderful.
Ignore it.
Wonderful.
Just focus on how AI and neuroscience can help us make better learners.
Wonderful.
And people of Indian origin, better teachers for the rest of the world.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, sir. And the title of the series is going to be Learning How to Learn.
Absolutely.
Learning how to learn. 4 different sessions.
And you must make sure that the reference to new education policy is there as you announce it.
Wow.
So we are doing this in pursuance of the new education policy.
Wow.
उसके सेक्शन आप देख लीजिएगा 4.5, 4.2 वगैरह में बहुत क्लियरली लिखा है शुरू में स्कूल एजुकेशन में लिखा है And they have no way of going around doing it because वो ऐसे मेथड कर नहीं पाएंगे. वो फिर NCERT की एक मीटिंग करेंगे, फिर 4 एक्सपर्ट लाएंगे, फिर कुछ लाएंगे.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure. Regards to
Yeah.
you, regards to family, and I bow before you. Every time I learn, there's so much of wisdom comes from you. Namaskar,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank
Shubh
you for
Ratri.
your